Hello and welcome to this Transcending Ascension production of The Consciousness of Physics by Ivan Antic. All copyright to the author. We're jumping back in where we left off, but you don't need to have heard any of the previous information to take value out of this upcoming information, but all the previous parts of the book are available on the YouTube channel as well as the podcast. And here we go. Parallel realities and the dimensions of nature. Have you ever wondered how and why it came about that thoughts exist? Cognitive ability as such, memorizing the past and having insights into the future, entertaining the ability to explore different options. Why dreams and fantasy exist in the first place. Most people, however, have not delved into this matter. They make do with using their thoughts spontaneously in a variety of ways. They dream and fantasize without bothering to ask any of these questions. Thoughts, dreams, and fantasies are possible only because reality is multidimensional, whereas multidimensionality combined with momentariness of creation practically means that reality is never one, but consists of a number of possibilities, and all the possibilities of reality are in parallel. They are simultaneous and never separate. They permeate one another, creating the world we live in. We are fixed in one reality and consider others as mere possibilities, as thoughts or fantasies, or we contact them through dreams. That is all. If all the possibilities of reality are simultaneous and interconnected, it means the world consists of all the possible realities that coexist in parallel. Due to the momentariness and non-existence of time, or objective motion for that matter, it is not one reality that moves and transforms into the others, but rather all possible realities already existing simultaneously. Our eye gives itself the illusion of movement that it projects onto reality. Our eye moves as does our mind, but not the world itself. Only our mind, manas, in the factor, ahamkara, that actualizes the selected reality for consciousness, mahat buddhi. The mind ties it to one of the potential realities. Hence, this reality becomes the only reality a conscious subject is capable of being aware of. Reality is a subjective experience, and for as long as it lasts, it provides them with the illusion that it is the only possible one. This illusion is so strong that we cannot detect it, even though it is ever changing. We always believe the current illusion only, and we suffer when a current reality appears bygone or is unavailable to us. Although they are all equally present in parallel. The human is therefore only a conscious subject of an objective existence that actualizes all the possibilities of existence in an individual way. We always change reality by using all the dimensions of nature together: air, fire, water, and earth, which are all in us. Before we set about doing things, we first ponder the matter, carefully weighing it in our minds, considering all the aspects that come about, how to go about it, until we come up with several versions. Before finally picking one, the element of air, we then focus, exert our will, the element of fire, and imagination of its shape, the element of water. These are the steps one undertakes to realize an idea on the physical plane, to make it the reality in which we are. Maybe we did not meticulously analyze everything the way scientists do in their work, but spontaneously came up with an idea, an image, or intention to do something. And within a few moments of deliberating, we applied ourselves to the task, and yet again, sometimes it all happens in a flash, or it seems that way to us. The higher dimensions in us operate like that and affect the processes of our phenomena. All the imagining and designing with our mind are possible only because there are higher dimensions of nature within us, and they are simultaneous. The momentariness of all the dimensions creates parallel dimensions. Parallel realities and momentariness of existence are mutual. Their mutuality enables the energy of consciousness to be omnipresent. Since nature is multidimensional, momentary, and unsubstantial, it is clear that as such it can express itself only as an amalgam of all the possible realities in one whole, because its reality consists of all the parallel realities. When we are thinking about something, the reality this thought belongs to has already been realized, but only in the element of air. When we desire something with all our heart, when we invest will and energy into some idea, it is already realized, but in 2 dimensions only, air and fire. When we fantasize about something, the reality of that image has already been visualized, but only in the element of water, astral. Only if all of these elements are united in one whole will this reality be realized on the physical plane, the element of earth. Practically, it means that on the physical plane, we should be in tune with our ideas, with the reality we wish to see, and to act as though it has already happened. In this way, we realize higher dimensions on the physical plane. Here we have to, at least seemingly, step by step, act as though we already have it, that this reality is present. That is how we attract it into our life. The only obstacle on the physical plane is if, with our conduct of our work ethics, we are not suitable and worthy enough to accept a different kind of reality, to see it as though it were already here. Our acceptance is the biggest problem, not the new reality, for it is available and already present as an option. If we do not act in accordance with the new reality we desire with our mind, and since the higher mind sees it as its task to provide us with the desired reality, it comes to the logical conclusion that we do not act in tune with the reality we fantasize about, that we are not mature enough to live it, and that the fulfillment of this wish of ours would be inappropriate, premature, or counterproductive. You do not give money to a junkie. That is the reason our desires do not come true. We have to be the reality we would like to have. Every thought or idea regarding the possibilities for some action is a reflection of one of the possible realities. Every thought or fantasy is also a reflection of the other parallel realities that have not actualized in our space and time, but merely mimic some other parallel reality. They are accessible to us through the higher dimensions in us, and via these higher dimensions in us, we are linked to all the other possibilities of all phenomena. These possibilities that have not actualized appear as thoughts or fantasies in us. When we think in a certain way, we use the reality that reflects such a way of thinking. When we think in a different way, we reflect a different parallel reality. When we do something else, we generate our targeted reality with a whole series of favorable or unfavorable consequences. When instead we do something that varies from our set path, we have automatically diverted to a different reality, and we begin to actualize other options. This is the case with dreams too. We go to higher dimensions of nature when we dream, and we go through alternative possibilities from our range of experiences in existence. It is possible because we then test all the other parallel realities of those higher dimensions. The only difference in connection with dreams is that we can have contact with our parallel incarnations and consciousness of the soul with other souls as well, and much clearer than in our awake state here in 3-dimensional reality. The more energy and consistency we put into our idea or conviction, the more we identify with this reality, the more we actualize it. Since all realities coexist in parallel, they are not separate. When we reside in one and work on its actualization, we can still have further contact with the other ones in their representatives. We can still go back to the old ones and combine several of them. Everything is allowed and available when realities are the issue. This freedom is both a blessing and a curse. It is a blessing when we use it consciously, then we are the creators of the reality we live in. And it acts as a curse when in this natural mechanism of existence we have set in motion is used unconditionally. Then it always seems to us that some higher force conditions and oppresses us. We cannot completely transfer from one reality to another during our physical life in the body. When we are attached to the one reality of our current life, but we may be able to change it to a large degree in accordance with the time and connectedness of all the dimensions. If we do not have awareness of the higher dimensions, we are unable to alter the reality we live in because it can change only through all the dimensions jointly. If we only think about something, the element of air, but invest no energy, fire, and invariably creative imagination, water, in this idea, it will not come true on the element of earth. It can only come true if we physically do what we are supposed to do in order to make it happen. All our lives, we do nothing but learn of the higher dimensions. They are in us. It is the world of our ideas, will, imagination, and feelings. The more we become acquainted with them in practical terms, the more emotionally mature we are, and more intelligent as well. This is all a process of approaching our consciousness of the soul, consciousness that enables overall existence. And that's the end of that chapter. That chapter was so profound. That was so deep. I read that all in one go. So I apologize if it wasn't as perfect as normal. Not that I'm perfect, but I'm not going to edit it because I didn't have any overwhelmingly trips in my speaking. So I'm going to leave it as is. And let's dive in. Earlier, as it's talking, the bringing it down, that was scientifically explaining to you Neville Goddard, whichever one you call it as. That was explaining all the books he has, and he uses biblical terms because he's early 19th century, and that's just how they did it. But this right here with Ivan Antic was explaining the scientific truth of see it to believe it, live it to have it. You have to get those processes to work together, and that too is also alchemy. If you study alchemy, it's explaining the same process. The alchemical process is going through the layers and the steps to create, to transmute, is to create something that already exists, but create it anew, which we do a million times a second, as we've talked about before in this book with the divine particle. We're in and out, in and out. And what he said there is a major block that I can personally attest to. We can learn all the actual scientific alchemical steps, but if to manifest something we want in our lived reality. But if you are not a living embodiment of it first, like let's say you still think you're not a good person, you're not going to allow yourself to receive that manifestation. This is why in my teachings I teach Christ consciousness, because you have to up level yourself. If you're coming from a lower playing field, as the majority of us are, if you were not born and raised into an already not traumatized family, if you are not traumatized at all, then this need not apply to you. But if you are traumatized in any way, shape, or form, that means you have darkness. It is traumatizing if you were never beaten, but your parents got divorced. It is traumatizing if you were never beaten, your parents stayed married, but you were put in daycare when you were a year and a half, a year, 6 months, 17 weeks was me. If you were put into daycare and separated from your mother, you are traumatized. Even junior kindergarten is too soon if the child is not ready. That's one of those, maybe they're ready, maybe they're not. That's up to the child. You could be traumatized at any age, at any point. A lot of my trauma came from adulthood even, because I betrayed myself following the rules of going to school, like after high school where you have frosh week and you're supposed to start drinking and then you now all of a sudden you're a drinking person that goes to parties and drinks because all the other kids are doing it and you fall into that. They tell you not to fall into the don't do it because other kids are doing it when you're a kid. That was never a thing. If you weren't that kind of kid, you weren't invited to that. You were not invited to those kinds of parties. But when you go to college or university, you are now presented and everyone is now one of those kids where you all get to reinvent yourself and now all of a sudden you're all cool, which is exactly what happened. I went and got to be cool in college and university, but that's not exactly what you want to do to not traumatize yourself, especially if you have a sparkle seed soul. Drinking is not good for you. Drinking allows entities to swarm you, especially if you came from the binge drinking, which we did. Like, that was what was pushed on you. The more you drank, the better you were, and drinking as much as possible made you a champion. Like, you were cheered and celebrated for your upside down beer funneling. Like, these are grandized things that cause blackout drinking, which allows huge amount of entities to come inside you, and now you are blocked like you wouldn't believe. And then a few years later, when you're 25 and it's not cool to drink anymore, now you got to get old and smarten up. Now you're filled with entities, and they are blocking you from the transforming adult life you planned to have, that you were always going to have. You didn't realize drinking in your early 20s was going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Guess what? It is. But you can get rid of all the entities. Now you just have to do a ton of work, like a ton of work. You can get rid of all of them, but it's a ton of work because you need to change your thought patterns. Your thought patterns are where they're rooted. It's why energy healing, if done by somebody else, is not going to last permanently unless you can permanently change your thoughts. It can definitely help. You can use it absolutely as a temporary measure. Take all the demons off, all the negative entities, and it doesn't even have to be all of them, but you take a great amount of weight off. It helps you to easier change your thought patterns now, but then as they start to come back, if they start to come back, you make sure you do not attach to their bread and butter. Whatever the thought pattern is, it'll be something specific. Like, there's ones that attach to your perverted thoughts. There's ones that attach to your self-pitying thoughts. There's ones that attach to your wallowing, which is similar. There's ones that attach to your anger. You have different entities for all of them. And the more powerful ones are going to enjoy drinking everything you provide. There is this whole world that gets created inside your thought patterns. And it doesn't have to be childhood abuse. It's also your own created abuse. And that you're still possibly living in self-abuse. Even myself, I have to check myself if something goes wrong to forgive yourself instantly. You're allowed making a mistake. You're allowed seeing when you were wrong, but you are not allowed calling yourself stupid about it. You're going, okay, I'm wrong. And then we let that dissolve, integrate, and carry on. So that everything he just said here about pure manifestation can happen. It was a very brief paragraph there, or a page there, where he said that all this is well and good, but it will not work for you if you have too many internal blocks. You have to get rid of those blocks. And this is why I teach Christ consciousness. And if you want help getting over your blocks, you can come visit my actual metaphysical teachings. But that is all here today in this audio production of Ivan Antic's book, The Physics of Consciousness. One of the most powerful book I've actually ever found. So right here, right now, if you want to ascend, this book is just yours to read over and over and over again. That's why I love reading it and then coming back and reading it to you guys, because I get to dive back into it. And it's like how they describe the Bible. You get something new every time. It goes deeper every time, because when you're looking at the layers of the universe, the actual sacred geometry layers it's actually made of, those are infinite, and they're always unpacking and twisting and turning and expanding. And this book is just the key to doing that. So thank you so much for tuning into Transcending's Ascension production here, and you have yourself a fantastic day. I'll talk to you soon.